Welcome back on FRCmedia. I'm Keith Tebow. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday. We are pleased to be joined for our weekly visit from the co-CEOs of the One SouthCoast Chamber, Rick Kidder and Michael O'Sullivan. Gentlemen, how are you today?
Great, thank you, Keith. How are you?
It's a beautiful day outside. You know, can't beat it. Summer is just about here, almost officially. So it's good to see the two of you again. We've been catching up with the two of you on a weekly basis during the COVID-19 pandemic, just to get updates of how our local businesses are faring throughout the process. And now we're a week plus into phase two. Restaurants are able to have some outdoor seating. Rick, let me start with you in terms of, in general, how has phase two gone thus far in terms of retail being open, and in the cases of where you are, maybe in the greater New Bedford area, how restaurants are faring?
So far, the restaurants are actually faring pretty well. The city of New Bedford came up with a no-cost permit, a kind of cafe permit, which allows them an extension of premises. And now is in the process of figuring out what streets can be closed for those places that don't have parking areas or whatnot. And it's been a very streamlined process so far. I think if for example, a restaurant got their application in on the 10th, it's approved on the 11th. So things are going actually fairly quickly. And we've got 30 or 40 restaurants that are open now with outdoor dining. And I'll tell you, driving around, there was a pent-up desire for people to get outside. And fortunately, the weather's cooperating. COVID is cooperating for now. And I think, to be honest with you, we're getting there. It's starting to feel a little bit more normal out there, right down to traffic going to work.
Yeah, sounds good. And Mike, in terms of Fall River, how's the sense been generally about this phase two reopening?
There's a lot of excitement. You know, the city's working on getting it, getting everything done for the folks. But those that have been able to open already they're doing well so far. The feedback has been good, and they're very happy to be open.
You know, one of the things that's been sort of interesting that we've been seeing more statewide and locally, but not necessarily the rest of the country, is the numbers. We're talking so much about the numbers of cases in the Commonwealth, the number of cases in Fall River, New Bedford, and Bristol County. Locally, those numbers have been a little more in check, but I know that from government standpoint, and I'm sure neither one of you can answer this, from a business standpoint, even though the numbers look good, there's no opportunity or reason for us to be joyful that this thing is over, correct?
No, you're right. I mean, as you may know, Keith, I moved here 5 years ago from Arizona, so I'm in touch with folks back there. Arizona wasn't hit as hard as Massachusetts was, and in the process of reopening, they reopened a little bit more quickly. They're starting to see a spike in their numbers. So it's important that for some of those states that have not been as judicious as Massachusetts has been, that they follow the guidelines. There are going to be a couple of states that may have to go into rethink. We're hoping that doesn't happen here because we've had some very good leadership throughout.
Yeah. And that's something, Mike, I know that, I'm sure you're talking about with some of the people in Fall River specifically, the fact that, there's a lot of good mojo and good sense going around, but people still need to be cautious. And, we're seeing in general, and we see pockets of people that are adhering to social distancing, wearing their masks when they need to. There's still a few people, though, who are looking to buck the trend, especially when they're outside. But from what you hear in Fall River, are all the businesses you're dealing with more cautious than not?
They're cautiously optimistic. Being safe is incredibly important at this point in time. We can't afford to have this come back in any way, shape, or form. Rick mentioned Arizona. I've got a son in Texas who is seeing similar things where it's getting, spiking again in Texas. So, there's, but in Fall River, everyone's cautiously optimistic and they're trying to do the right thing. And people are calling each other out too if they're not wearing the mask, if they don't have a mask over their nose, constantly washing your hands and sanitizing and those types of things. It's an annoying, tedious process to be safe, but it's worth it in the end.
It is, and Keith, one of our staffers works for Mike and me as a second job, and was telling the story of working at the mall, and one of her responsibilities was to make sure that people were wearing their masks as they came in the door. She actually ran into a customer who became quite belligerent and refused to put on a mask. And it's funny. I don't think anybody likes wearing them. I don't like wearing them. But if we're going to keep each other safe in this process and stop this thing so we can get back to normal or as close to normal as we can, we've got to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And I know that, we've all noticed going into stores, even grocery stores, even though they've been open for, the whole duration, there's someone at the door that either has a phone device, an iPad, or an old-fashioned clicker in terms of counting people coming in because of the restrictions. I want to move ahead now to what's expected to be step 2 of phase 2, which is supposed to provide a little more leniency for businesses. From what you're hearing, Rick and Mike, does it look like that? I think the governor announced even yesterday that he may have some news on this toward the end of the week. Are we looking at possibly starting this as soon as next week, as far as what you're hearing?
We haven't heard any exact dates yet. We're lucky that tomorrow Secretary Keneally is going to be doing a virtual town hall with us. We may get more insight from the secretary as we go through that. But it would not surprise me if he stuck to his guns with the dates that he had, even though they were tentative. I think everybody's dying to get a little bit more freedom, but we have to be careful about this. And we've had some instances where people didn't want to be that careful, but we got to make sure that they are.
Yeah. And I know, Mike, in terms of moving forward, it's important to note that with this step 2 of phase 2, and there's so many different names here. I was in a meeting last week, and we were talking about phase 2, and I said, well, there's steps within the phases, and the phases within the steps. The names and the nomenclature gets all confused. Yeah, for a number of people, it gets a little confusing, but. Mike, in terms of what you're seeing maybe in local Fall River, there's that excitement, that willingness to reopen. And I think it's equally as important to make sure that people, and we've talked about this, not only to remain safe, but also remain smart. And, we talked about people counting people going in. In some ways, that's a job opportunity for some individuals, correct? I mean, they need someone to do that.
It is a job opportunity, but to what Rick said, you have to be careful. And the government can tell us, yes, you can be open, no, you can't be open. But we'd like, as much as we'd like to be everybody to be open, you still have to be smart, safe, and careful. And if you're not, you're going to have problems. And you need to take care of these things. And it's just you need to make sure to protect your employees and to protect your customers. That the people wear masks and they have them over their nose. I mean, I've been in the grocery stores where people in the produce department, they're either not wearing it at all or they don't have it over their nose, and it's they're putting a lot of people at risk. You got to be careful in this process, otherwise we're going to take a step back. But we really this is onward and upward. Let's get moving and let's get the economy going.
Yeah. Gentlemen, let me just ask you as we wrap up here, 2 quick things. One, how are the Signs of Life? How's the project moving forward in terms of promoting some of the businesses? How's that happening, Rick?
It's doing great. We're using that primarily as a Facebook and LinkedIn promotion, and we were thrilled that Reynolds DeWalt stepped forward to be a sponsor of it. But we've been collecting pictures of restaurants and businesses that are open. It's kind of celebratory in nature. Putting those together into slideshows, sending them out via social media to show that there are signs of life in our economy. And as we go forward, I think we'll see more and more of these. The time has come for us to start to dwell on the positive stuff that's going on. And opening your doors didn't used to seem like a big deal. It's a big deal to a lot of these small businesses. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, in some ways, it's sort of like another chance to have like a different ribbon cutting, if you will, in terms of starting back. Mike, let me just ask you this. Obviously, the chamber, we talked about this a number of times when we've talked. The chamber is continuing with its education and its information series. You mentioned about Secretary Keneally being in the region this week. What other opportunities are there for members to take part in some education and some information sessions?
We're constantly doing the information sessions and virtual town halls, and we're looking to we're in contact with many of the local delegation and some of the Baker administration to get those folks to come and talk to our businesses. So we're constantly doing it. So keep looking on our Facebook page and keep looking on our website. But tomorrow we have Secretary Keneally at 9 a.m. On Zoom. So go to our website and register. That'll be exciting because he'll be able to talk and give us an update on everything that's happening with the reopening, which is so important to everybody.
Right. All right, Rick and Mike, as always, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us, and we'll hopefully talk again next week. Take care.
Great. Thank you, Keith.
Thanks,
So
Keith.
much.
All right,
Mike.
and I want to thank
care.
all of you for joining me again this week and today on FRC Media, and we'll talk again soon. Have a great day.